Good afternoon, good morning, everybody, and welcome to Alfresco Office Hours. For those of you who are new to the call, Office Hours is a monthly session that we do where we talk with different members of the Alfresco employees. We talk to different teams about projects going on, and you just kind of get a better idea of our company and who's working on what and what we're building at the time. I'm Kristen Gastaldo. I'm the community manager for Alfresco, so I manage with our developer evangelist, Francesco Corti. We do a lot of the developer events. We work in the Jive space, the developer community, so you can often see us there talking about new release information, upcoming events, and you can always find me in there if you have any questions. So I do have a couple announcements before we get going with the session. We are talking about our new OEM program today. So we have 3 guys joining us. I'm going to let them introduce themselves in just a minute. We're all from different teams, so it's nice to kind of get an idea of how things all work together. So we do have our developer conference coming up. That's our big news right now. I know we're about to head into the holiday season, so we're a bit low on other events as people are kind of off for the holiday. But DevCon is going to be January 16th through 18th in Lisbon, Portugal. It's devcon.alfresco.com if you want to check out the details. Our call for papers has closed, and we're going to be talking to our selected speakers within the next week. So you should start seeing the schedule come up within the next, hopefully, few days. So you'll have a better idea of the topics we're going to be covering, the people who'll be attending. Registration will open after that information is out, so we'll have that up for you soon as well. If you have any questions, you can reach me directly at, you can just email the DevCon email address, which is devcon@alfresco.com. And now I'm going to hand it over to Garen.
Thanks, Kristen. So just to get started here, hello everyone. Thanks for taking the time to join us today. I'd like to introduce myself. I'm Garen Ingleby, Director of Worldwide OEM Sales at Alfresco. And with me is Nathan McMinn, Alfresco's Senior Director of Strategic Services within Alfresco's support organization, as well as Craig Tan, who is part of Nathan's team. In terms of our agenda today, we're going to take you through Alfresco's OEM program, which is a new program designed specifically to enable software developers to embed Alfresco products, Alfresco content, process, and governance services into their applications or software as a service that they would then sell to their end customers. So we have a very kind of special arrangement for that type of partnership, different agreements, different business terms, different entitlements, and benefits for OEM partners. I'm going to spend about 15 to 20 minutes talking about Alfresco's technology and how it's especially well suited to embedding within applications specifically. Why this is something that you as a software developer should consider, and then run through the specific benefits of the program itself. I'm then going to hand over the reins to Nathan and Craig to talk about how Alfresco's premier services, which are enhanced support and consulting services from Alfresco, are key complementary elements in terms of benefits for an OEM to help them integrate the products, to help them get off the ground, architectural guidance, and that sort of assistance. So,
sorry to interrupt real quick. If you do have questions, we're taking questions on the YouTube chat channel. Just ask a question right there, or we're also monitoring our IRC channel if you have questions.
Yeah, thanks, Kristen. I want to point out here that we'll certainly retain a good percentage of the time here for a question and answer session at the end. Just a bit more of a personal introduction. I've spent most of my career at Adobe and a few different software as a service and mobile-oriented startups here in Silicon Valley. I've been involved with enterprise content management and business process management solutions over the past 15 years. And let me tell you, these have not been easy technologies to embed into other software applications. As many of you probably know, historically, just looking at the legacy technologies out there in this space, these systems are really heavyweight, monolithic type applications that are typically based on proprietary technology and optimized for on-premise deployments. So really, what's different about Alfresco? And for the benefit of those joining us today who are not familiar with Alfresco, I'll talk a bit about just an introduction to our business. So, we're focused on the flow, advancing the flow of digital business. Our platform is made up of three key components: content services, which is classic enterprise content management; process services, you may be familiar with business process management, for example; and governance services or records management. Alfresco helps over 1,300 industry-leading organizations, including Cisco, Bank of New York Mellon, Liberty Mutual, Capital One, U.S. Department of the Navy, and NASA, as a few examples, be more responsive and more competitive. It's always helpful just to talk about a little bit of an illustrative example to help you, visualize this. But let's take patient onboarding in healthcare. This is still a predominantly paper-based experience at this point. So what we're talking about here is Alfresco's platform transforming that experience into an engaging digital experience where my information, when I enter a clinic, is easily captured and stored via mobile or web, a consistent mobile or web experience that's compelling. And then that data is shared across multiple workflow processes, only to those who should have access to this information in exactly the right time in the execution of those processes. And ultimately, any resulting content, so healthcare is a highly regulated industry. Those healthcare records are then managed and retained and later even destroyed in compliance with regulatory requirements. So that's basically what we're talking about from an application perspective in terms of the focus of Alfresco's digital platform. Just one example. Now, from more of a technology point of view, and for those of you who are members of Alfresco's developer community currently and familiar with this technology, I won't linger too long on this topic, but just want to call out a few highlights in terms of why Alfresco's technology is especially well suited for embedding in your application or software as a service. So in terms of user experience and front-end development, we have a new application development framework that lets you create reusable UI components. And this is based on Angular and leveraging Google's material design. So JavaScript oriented, it's a reusable set of Angular components and services specifically, along with Alfresco's JavaScript API, you can take advantage of to customize the look and feel of your application. In terms of integration, we make a rich set of REST APIs available for the three different services: content, process, and governance services, and your ability to integrate with them is primarily through REST-based APIs and JavaScript. At the core services level, I want to emphasize, the importance of being built on an open source foundation. So this is something, that Alfresco is quite closely affiliated with. In terms of what we license to OEM partners, we provide an enterprise version, a commercial version of the software. However, you as an OEM partner would receive access to that source code. And certainly, there's tremendous value in these being built on the open source foundation in terms of innovation from the community. And then, of course, transparency, knowing exactly what's going on within the code and having access to that. Finally, from a deployment point of view, we offer quite a flexible approach to deploying in terms of on-premise, cloud, or hybrid. Our direction technologically is definitely toward the containerization of these services. You may have noticed that if you've been around the Alfresco community for a while, that fairly recently we renamed the products as services, and this is definitely to emphasize our focus on enabling the developer to utilize these as a containerized microservice within their architecture. A bit more on the deployment subject. So what you're looking at here is Alfresco's content services quick start on AWS, essentially a reference architecture. It takes advantage of AWS cloud formation, and really the reason we're investing a lot in AWS is we have a significant number of customers and OEM partners, this may not surprise you, who are quite interested in deploying their solution on an infrastructure as a service like AWS. We have others that utilize Google Cloud Platform or Azure, but from a strategic point of view, Alfresco has align significant segments of our product roadmap with AWS, and we have a global go-to-market partnership with them as a technology partner. We've achieved some significant scalability milestones on AWS that are worth noting, including a billion object benchmark with content services taking advantage of AWS Aurora as the database. So we're also looking to leverage, these new AWS services to complement the different Alfresco services. Pretty quickly, we'll also have a process services quick start. And in terms of speed, and time to value, this, I want to call out, that this is a big advantage. You can deploy these quick starts in less than an hour. So quite an advantage in terms of both development and production and capability from a deployment point of view. So I want to take a step back and just from a more philosophical point of view, you as a software developer, why would you even want to embed content, process, or governance into your application? I think it's important to talk about the classic build versus buy consideration that product leaders, product management, engineering, typically struggle with. You never have enough resource to build the features that your customers are expecting from you, and often this feature functionality is outside your core competency. So if it is outside of your mission from a product point of view, a challenge is that you can't count on building this being something that you're able to accommodate. It's typically it's going to be quite a bit more difficult and take a lot longer than you expect if it is outside of your core competency. And it's not just building the functionality; it's certainly supporting and enhancing that over time. It's a moving target. Skipping anything that's outside of your core functionality in order to build, say, content, process, or governance services is a major opportunity cost. You're giving up what should be differentiating value for your core product. Yeah, I imagine you might agree that's where you really want to focus your finite resources. So by potentially licensing these components, you save yourself the resource to be able to focus on your core mission. It's hard to keep up really in terms of innovation in these areas. A lot has gone on with content, process, and governance services, as you're probably quite aware, and keeping up with what today might be your customers' requirements and something that would delight them if you were to deliver it tomorrow, quickly becomes table stakes, because this is a moving target again, and staying ahead of the innovation is typically not something that's a practical pursuit when it's outside your core competency. So you can certainly, again, accelerate your time to value by leveraging Alfresco's R&D and investment in these areas when content, process, or governance is part of your set of product requirements. Something that's totally outside of the build versus buy consideration is why not take advantage of these services to create new revenue streams? We have some OEM partners that are software developers, in excess of $1 billion in revenue a year. They haven't necessarily rewrote their platform leveraging Alfresco services, but they've integrated them into their solutions in order to generate new revenue streams. Take, for example, the process services. Many applications, of course, have their own workflow engines and some pre-built kind of processes that they deliver as part of their application. Taking advantage of Alfresco process services and our open APIs and open source foundation, you can quickly bolt that onto your solution and offer a custom way for your customers to generate their own workflows. So that's something some of our larger OEMs do to create new revenue streams. And that's certainly another important consideration. To wrap up on my piece before I hand it over to Nathan and Craig to talk about our premier services that complement our OEM program, I'd like to introduce you to the specific benefits of our new program. And this is designed, as you'd expect, to enable embedding of our products into your application and software as a service. Specifically, we have a flexible licensing model that doesn't impose, some arbitrary software licensing model upon you. Rather, it it aligns with how you monetize your software. For example, you know, we have some partners in the healthcare space that license their software on a per hospital bed application. So we would align to that, you know, to their metric, and to deliver that flexible licensing model that's completely tied to how they monetize. As part of the program, you have unlimited access to development software. So, you know, integration products for commercial software often take quite a bit of time and engineering effort. You know, you have unlimited access to Alfresco technology to enable that process. You also have access to second and third level technical support. You know, you're providing first level support since it's your application. You handle the interaction with your customers. We provide you with a backup in terms of being able to escalate Alfresco specific cases, you know, up the chain to get those resolved with the enterprise class SLA. Another component is certainly access to training. So, you know, you're going to want to have access to Alfresco training in order to both develop your integration as well as to support that going forward, and that's part of what we provide to you. From an optional point of view, and this is something that Nathan and Craig will get into, but you know, we provide developer support, so API level support is an option to support you during your integration planning and execution phase, and consulting to provide that necessary architectural guidance, best practices guidance, you know, during those phases. We currently have over 40 OEM partners across all kinds of different verticals, from financial services to healthcare to more horizontal things like you know, an IoT application or architecture, engineering, and construction collaboration is quite a frequent application in terms of our OEM partners. You can find more information here on alfresco.com. It's actually quite easy to locate on the site. And with that, I don't want to take any further time, so we have a lot of time left for questions and answers, but I'd like to hand it over to Nathan and Craig to talk about how Alfresco's premier support services complement our OEM program and help ensure the success of our OEM partners.
Great. Thank you, Garen and Kristen. My name is Nathan McMahon. I'm Alfresco's Senior Director of Strategic Services. And let me get my screen share started and the slide deck going here. Okay, so, oh, my apologies, that was supposed to start from a little bit further along. Right. So Alfresco's Strategic Services organization is composed of two broad sub-orgs, if you will. The first is Alfresco Premier Services, and the second is Alfresco Consulting. Premier Services tends to be more operations focused, and it breaks down into our Technical Account Manager program and our Premier Services Engineer program. And this is delivered as an annual subscription service. So it's something that we do over long term with strategic customers who need various levels of technical help from their vendor as they roll out content, process, and governance services.
Hey, Nathan, sorry to interrupt. I don't see your slides. Is anybody else seeing the slides?
Oh. My apologies. It says it's sharing.
Maybe it's just me. Garen, Craig, do you guys see? Okay, you don't see slides either. Let's see.
Let's
try again.
Can you see that now?
Now we're good.
Okay, let's see if we can see it when I go full screen. Got it?
Still good.
Okay, great. Thank you, Kristen. So the second part of Alfresco Strategic Services is our consulting services arm, which is really more architectural and development focused.
I think we lost it again.
Hey, Nathan, yeah, when you speak, for some reason, I don't know if you've got two screens going. When you speak, it goes back to your image. It's being strange.
Just one. Let me try turning off my video and see if that works.
Okay, I see your slides now.
Okay, can you still see them now when I'm talking?
Still good.
Yes.
Okay, good. So let's back up one slide then. We have several packaged offerings within the consulting arena. Our on-ramp, which is focused on helping customers get started with the product. And of particular interest to our OEM customers and partners is our technical design authority, which provides ongoing technical assistance on Alfresco projects. So this is ongoing hands-on technical guidance and architectural guidance on how to implement Alfresco solutions. We're also frequently delivering custom engagements related to development of a specific component or performance tuning for a specific case, and we are able to craft those offerings within the consulting division as well. Big difference between Premier Services and consulting in the delivery method is that one is delivered as an annual subscription service, so it's ongoing, high touch, full-time work, and the other is delivered according to a scoped statement of work.
Hey Nathan, I got to get you again. The slides went away again. I don't know if every time you talk, it just goes back to your picture for some reason. Let me see if I can force this to present, if that changes anything. Or do you want to try speaking now and see if it changes?
Okay, do you see it? Is it still there?
It's still there now.
Okay.
Fingers crossed this works.
Let's see what happens. So within the Premier Services, Premier Support Services programs, again, we do have two programs there, the Premier Services Engineer and the Technical Account Manager. Our PSEs are really dedicated to planning, deployment, day-to-day operations on the Alfresco digital business platform. And they are full-time dedicated people. They work with a single account. In the case of one of our more successful OEMs, they actually have several PSEs engaged, and Craig will talk more about that in depth as we get towards the end of the presentation. The other side of this is our Technical Account Manager program, and they serve as a primary point of contact for support. They will handle up to 4 customers, so they're not full-time dedicated to a single person. And they take on severity 1 case handling as well as closer monitoring of all of the other cases. The important part about both of these is that they involve regular, in some cases daily involvement with your team to make sure that you're getting the most out of your Alfresco investment. With these, we also improve the service level targets for support, which if you are a SaaS company can be especially important, right? Because downtime is literally money. So when we have Premier Services involved, if we have a severity 1 case come in, we drop our initial response time down to 1 hour maximum. Although in practice, it is seldom close to that. The Technical Account Manager, in detail here, this is really designed for our large enterprise or OEM customers. Again, it is a shared resource. They'll go through and help you prioritize support cases and make sure that you're getting the quality solutions that you need from support by acting as your single point of contact. They can help you plan for growth. So especially if you're a SaaS company and you have some growth projections, you know what goals you're trying to achieve. Our technical account managers can help you plan for that, right? What are we going to do in terms of architecture adjustments or additional infrastructure we need to stand up as we meet our growth targets for our own customers.
Hey Nathan, we've lost it again. I'm sorry to keep interrupting you. They're just saying they're not seeing any slides. Do you want to send me the slides, or Garen or Craig, do you guys have these same slides? Do you want to try to share?
Actually, these aren't the ones. These are the ones that I was going to send out before the call. I can send this out to you real quick.
Yeah, Nathan, I can jump to your slides actually.
Well, I have to send you the updated deck, Garen.
Okay.
So give me just a moment.
Oh, YouTube technology.
So stop my screen share.
It works so well until it doesn't.
So let me get this sent over to you real quick. Almost there. Okay, Garen, those are on their way to you. When you get it, if you could just start at slide 10, and we'll go ahead and keep talking through it while we're here. Another thing that comes up pretty commonly, both in OEMs that are shipping a package software application as well as a service companies, are version upgrades, right? So how do you handle upgrading one of your underlying components when you are an OEM? Our Premier Services program is well-versed in helping customers in several different categories through these major version upgrades, what considerations you need to make as you go through and upgrade what eventually becomes an embedded technology within your application. They bring best practice recommendations. So if you've got questions about, what is the best way to interact with the platform, we have a whole library of those within Alfresco. They'll advocate for you within the org. So a lot of times when we have an OEM customer, they may have for example, an enhancement request that they need delivered, or potentially they discover an issue and they need a hot fix, so that they don't block their release because of an underlying issue in one of their dependencies. We're able to deliver both of those through our technical account manager program. And of course, regular roadmap updates and product strategy conversations. In order for an OEM to get the most value out of any of their downstream products, they really need to understand the direction that vendor is heading, for a number of reasons, not the least of which is that you don't want to develop something that might be on our roadmap 2 months from now. Garen, do you have the slides?
Yeah. Are you guys seeing them?
I do. Yep. Can we skip to the next, please?
Okay.
All right. The Premier Services Engineer is in many ways similar to our technical account manager. The primary difference being that it is a full-time dedicated resource, right? This person embeds with your team. They will go beyond what our technical account managers do. They do everything the TAMs do and more, including coming in and helping with major and minor customizations. So if you have extensions to the product that you need developed, our Premier Services engineers can step in and assist with that. They'll go much deeper in terms of performance tuning and health check engagements that are a part of the Premier Services Engineer program. And then where we hit things that are too big for a PSE, they'll work hand in hand with our consulting organization to get those delivered. Can we go to the next slide? So we've got a little matrix here on selecting the right service offerings. There are really 5 that we deliver across the entire Alfresco customer success organization. There's our primary support, right? And this is something that's available to every OEM customer. It's available to every Alfresco enterprise customer. There's the technical account manager program, which builds on the offerings of our primary support. Premier Services engineers, which expand on that further. Then we also have our dev support offering and our consulting offerings. Developer support is actually included for any customer that has licensed the full Alfresco digital business platform and has a premier level of support. So dev support comes in and they'll actually get even deeper with you on what are development best practices, helping your developers set up their dev environments, guidance on unit testing and automation. All of those are available through our developer support offering. Can you skip to the next one, Garen? So again, the kind of the matrix continued here. Best practices for extending the product really at the PSE level, dev support and consulting here. All of those offerings are available to join product kickoffs. They can help mapping requirements. Again, if we want somebody on site, our technical account managers do make regular site visits. Premier Services engineers are often co-homed with a customer, so they'll actually reside at our customer office, although not every time. Both our Premier Services engineers and consulting teams will work with your team on performance tuning, especially important in those SaaS applications, where delays can literally lead customers to walk. If you need hands-on help with administering your instances, so say, for example, you are a SaaS company running in AWS or cloud of your choice, or even your own data center, and you really want somebody to come in and help take over the administration of the Alfresco component, our Premier Services engineers are well equipped to do that, and we do that for several very large customers. And of course, we can also help you build your project team. So if you're looking for skill set recommendations, right? What is the profile of a successful content services developer? Or what type of a background should I look for if I'm hiring somebody to implement process services? We have some pretty deep hiring profiles that we can help you understand and make sure that you're building the right team to deliver a successful project. One of the customers where we've done this most successfully is a California-based OEM. And Garen, if you can go to the next slide. And I'd like to hand it over to Craig Tan to talk a bit about how his team, which is a team of Alfresco Premier Services engineers, has helped this particular OEM be successful.
Well, thanks, Nathan. Just talk and you guys still can see the slide. Can you hear me?
Yep, I can hear you, and Aaron's got the slide up.
Cool, excellent. So, thank you. So, just as Nathan mentioned, I'm a Premier Services Manager from Alfresco. I manage a team of Premier Services dedicated specifically to OEM partners. So, and in another word, I work very closely with the OEM partners. So, as Nathan mentioned, we don't just embed software into your products, we can also embed people and services into your R&D teams to help you customize your Alfresco side your product, so that you can focus on the business that truly matters to you and not having to worry about, how would I go about extending a certain component in Alfresco. So today I'm going to share with you this one large OEM partner in the life sciences industry that I work with and my team work with. And this OEM has a business need that are typically time critical. So whether it is getting a product out the door in a release or attend to one of their customers' production issues. So this OEM partner very quickly came to realize that they need to have an Alfresco representative on site, not one, but 4 of us, and to give them that closer guidance and to facilitate that ongoing relationship, both on the technical level and on the senior management and PM level. So they also realized that they need to hire a contractor from the market anyway to customize Alfresco out of the R&D budget. So instead of hiring from the market directly, they hire from Alfresco company so that they get that readily certified and trained engineers to help them customize. And of course, to get all that additional benefits that Nathan just mentioned, that Premier Services brings, like hot fixes, training, roadmap alignments, and senior management exposure. So some of my engineers work on site, in the OEM office as contractors, in part of the R&D team. They follow customer agile development methodologies, attending, their bi-weekly sprints. They participate in the sprint planning, story grooming, and even triaging the defects. Some of my folks work remotely too. Of course, they're doing the same thing, but they just have to dial into those regular meetings. So what you're looking at here is an example of that OEM partner, and this is what they wanted. So they wanted to create a packaged software solution for their specific vertical needs. Now, in this case, it's a life science analytics instrument software for industries like pharmaceutical and universities and hospitals, and they wanted a deep integration with Alfresco services, ranging from authentication to search to preview to activity log, audit trail, and you name it. Just to give you a few examples, like for the authentication side, they actually want an external centralized authenticator for validating and syncing the users into Alfresco and permissions. For search, they wanted an advanced search feature that's even more advanced than our advanced search feature. And for preview, they wanted to preview specialized file types that are only known by the industry. And obviously for other trails, they wanted to produce activity logs to meet the compliance requirements. And they also have packaging and deployment considerations. Unlike Alfresco customers, we deal with our customers who are usually pretty IT savvy, they're system administrators and developers. Now, this OEM partner they have customers that expect a product that would just work out of the box with a simple, like a few clicks of installation. So this product, what they're trying to do is package our product into a hardware, like a workstation type of a environment, and which are about 99% pre-configured for their customers, so that it can be run in a closed and highly regulated environment. And they also need to build extensive application extensions on top of Alfresco, having those components it may be a piece of the legacy app from the the .NET or DLL applications, or it may be a plugin from the third-party vendor like Adobe, or a third-party software that are completely integrated with Alfresco. So here's what we were offering from a premier services standpoint. So we were ensuring that their product roadmaps are constantly reviewed and aligned to our roadmaps. Now imagine you are building a product on top of Alfresco, and you want to avoid adopting the components that are getting deprecated. And obviously, you want to stay on that supported version or stack to make sure that your product will constantly being supported by us. And of course, vice versa, you may want Alfresco to support certain things that we currently don't support. And currently we're working with this one OEM to get Postgres 10, which was just released a couple of weeks back, into the product stack. Now, and secondly, we also want to ensure best practices to follow when they're embedding Alfresco to, one of the biggest challenges for OEM customers are technical dates. Something that they really want to avoid in order to, be able to upgrade properly and smoothly. And yes, yeah, an open source company, but in many ways that can be dangerous too, because there are many ways to extending one thing. And as you can see, that we are there to help you to find the right extension point and the right methodology for extending Alfresco. And not only to provide them with the help of developing new components, but we're also providing a third-level support assistance, so that on a day-to-day basis, when a customer issue arises, we can address them in a timely manner. So OEMs have their customers that are different to our customers, and usually in a production situation issue, you don't want to be alone out there by yourself. And a premier engineer understands both your product and our product well to better troubleshoot issues, and also we have that back ways to our experts and turnaround. Now, lastly, we are a software company too. So as you know, honestly, all softwares have, and another big advantage for getting premier services is not only to have that PSE headcount, but also the ability to request for hotfixes in a timely manner and priority. And just for to give you a little bit of stats, for this one particular OEM partner, we have actually shipped out 6 critical hotfixes in the first half of the fiscal year 18 in order to get their product out the door. So hopefully that gives you a bit of an idea of some of the stuff that we're doing with this OEM partner on a day-to-day basis. And then just to summarize, as a company, we see that most of our OEM partners are doing very much similar things that we Alfrescans do. Things like QA. We QA our products and have to QA products well. We do benchmarking. We have installation procedure. We have upgrade challenges. We have documentations. A lot of OEM partners, they tend to come in as menus or product specs. We do developments. You guys do developments too. We have a particular licensing model that OEM has a different licensing model. Sometimes it may be different to us or similarly. Localization concerns, security concerns, and notifications, and so on. The list goes on and on. So as you can see, you're building a product on top of another company's product, and you need to have all that visibilities that you can get into the vendor that you're embedding on. So that's basically a bit of a sharing from me. Hopefully that gives you some idea.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you, Craig. So we've been very successful with this OEM customer under Craig's leadership. Helping them to build their packaged application on top of the Alfresco services platform. We've heard from the engineering manager there that they really wouldn't be able to do it without us. And I think that it's been a very fruitful relationship over quite a few years for both parties. So I think with that, I think we've kind of gone over the consulting components, the premier support services, and some of the other enhanced support services we provide. I'd like to hand it back to Kristen and Garen.
Sure, we are reviewing some questions now, checking the IRC and checking the YouTube channel. If anybody has a question, go ahead and post in either of those spaces. We're able to pull them up. While I review, it would be worthwhile, I think, to share. So if someone, if someone was interested in taking part in the program, what's the order of operations for getting involved?
Yeah, this is Garen speaking. Can you hear me okay, Kristen?
Yeah, do you want to stop screen sharing? We still have the presentation up.
Yeah,
There we go.
there. Attempting to stop.
I see you now. I don't know if everybody else is seeing you.
Okay. Yeah, hopefully you can hear me and I can just talk through it here for a moment. Yeah, I'd say the best way to kick that off would to have a live discussion. So my information, I think the easiest way to reach me would be OEM@alfresco.com. Everyone's requirements vary, and it's good to have that initial kind of live discussion. We do have some information about the program on the site. It's pretty much a summary of what I described during our session today. But again, I think reaching out to us directly to interact, over the phone first to understand your needs would be the best way to approach it. Any other questions in the chat there, Kristen?
We did have a question come up in the chat that's more around just in general what microservices are. Like how are microservices different from other types of service? What's the benefit of a microservice? So it's a little bit.
Yeah, I'll make a comment, and it would be great if Nathan could jump in and add to that. But traditionally, take enterprise content management and business process management. You have these monolithic applications where if you were to embed something like that, you get the whole enchilada and not necessarily just the portion of the functionality that you need for your customer use case or product requirement. And a microservices approach would enable you to split up the functionality into essentially like Lego blocks that you can expose as needed within your application in a much more rapid and compelling fashion than, say, like trying to scale something where you have the entire application, as I was saying, embedded inside of your solution. How you do that, so like we specifically, provide support for Docker containers, and Kubernetes orchestration is something that we're working through as well, to provide these services more from a classic DevOps sort of a approach where you could rapidly innovate and update as well as scale those applications and just the functionality you need. But and Nathan, anything you want to add to that?
I think that really covers it. The microservices are really just small, decoupled, domain-aligned services, right? The idea being that you can iterate each one of those independently. You have to have a very well-defined contract so that you can do that without breaking other things in your application that depend on it. They should be more scalable, or should be built to be scalable. But it's also worth noting that there are challenges with microservices architectures. If you have to maintain state across different things, it can be hard to pass that back and forth. But I want to be clear that Alfresco internally is not yet what we would consider to be a full microservices architecture. But it is very quickly headed in that direction. So recently, for example, we've split out search services to be a completely decoupled service within the digital business platform. Governance services is headed that way. Content services, process services. So while Alfresco internally might not meet the strict definition of a microservices architecture, the way that we have designed the platform, we fit very well into your microservices architecture, where you may consider content or process management to be an individual domain that you need services for within your larger application architecture.
Yeah, something interesting there. If you get a chance to take a look at the Activity 7 roadmap, that on GitHub, you'll see a lot of this activity, as Nathan was describing, in terms of direction. We have a number of even multi-billion-dollar ISVs, they're OEM partners who are headed in this direction with us. So it's really, as many of you might guess, from a strategic point of view, an important differentiator for us, and something that we're investing a lot of resource into. Hopefully that helps.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, I was on mute. Yeah, I know that's kind of a large question to ask, right? We could do a whole session on this.
We'd love to do that.
Well, I think that's also part of the reason why you saw Alfresco rebrand last year as Alfresco Content Services, right? That's really in recognition of the market reality that a huge percentage of our customers, it may even be a majority, do primarily consume Alfresco as a services platform, right? They rely on our REST APIs to provide a content backend for something else that they're doing. Whether that's an integration with an off-the-shelf application like SAP, or that's something custom that they've built. And they may also be using our own UI, right? But the majority of our customers do have some form of service consumption within the content and process services platforms.
Hey, something else on that topic that's interesting for OEMs that comes up quite frequently is, particularly for a SaaS application, multi-tenancy is often part of the requirement set. We have different degrees of multi-tenancy support within the different Alfresco services, but heading toward a microservices-based architecture, and containerization, that also enables a different approach to multi-tenancy that can be quite a bit more effective for a software as a service vendor, for example. You may be familiar with some of these, growing topics around like serverless architectures. And in order where you have, a separate instance that just spins up and spins down for different tenants instead of a multi-tenancy kind of classic SaaS approach. So our, movement in this direction also will enable us ultimately to deliver, an approach like a serverless approach, for an OEM instead of, multi-tenancy. So that's another area where I think there's going to be tremendous value for OEMs based on, our strategic direction technologically here in the microservices approach.
Okay, great. I think we got a response, a really good breakdown on the microservices. Nice. So you guys answered the question there. Just double checking the IRC again if anybody has a question. If not, we might let you guys go just a little bit early today. We did have quite a bit of links happening. Let me see if I can share with you just real quick, one page. Again, if you want to learn more about DevCon, it's devcon.alfresco.com. If you want to learn more about the Activity 7 project, your best bet is probably going to be our Gitter channel or the just the GitHub page in general. I don't know if you can see my screen. I'm almost afraid to like presenter mode for it just shut down everything on YouTube. But there are the links to the community. We have an ECM and BPM space. You can find Nathan. I think you can find Garrett in the community as well. Craig, if you're not in there, we'll have to get you in there too. So you can find the guys directly there. Activity 7 has an active GitHub page and a pretty active Gitter channel as well if you want to chat with those guys. So again, our next event really is going to be, at this point, it looks like DevCon. We may try to sneak another Tech Talk Live in there, but with the holiday season, we'll see how that goes. So thank you. Let me see if I can stop the screen share real quick.
Yeah, thanks. If you have any interest in having a discussion about the OEM program, please reach out to us at oem@alfresco.com, and we'd love to have a further discussion if that's of interest.
Yeah, absolutely. So thank you, Craig. Thanks, Nathan. Thanks, Garen. We will talk to you guys again soon. Thanks, community.
Thank you.